Something inside you has been quietly waiting, not for permission, not for luck, but for a moment when you finally decide to ask. Not beg, not wish weakly, but ask with certainty, like you already belong to what you desire, because deep down you felt it before, that subtle pull telling you there is more meant for you, yet you've been trained to doubt, to shrink your desires, to question your worthiness. But what if the very act of asking is the key that unlocks everything you've been searching for? Look at your life right now, not with judgment, but with awareness. Every condition you see around you started as a thought you accepted as true. The limits, the fears, the delays, they didn't appear randomly. They were agreed upon internally, and if they were created that way, they can be transformed the same way. So the real question is not, can I receive, but am I ready to ask differently? When you ask from doubt, you create distance between you and your desire. But when you ask from belief, something shifts instantly within you. You stop chasing, and you start embodying the version of yourself who already has it. That version of you walks differently, thinks differently, expects differently, and life begins to mirror that inner shift in ways that feel almost unbelievable. You've been taught that asking is about words, but it goes far beyond that. Your dominant feeling is the real request you are sending out every single day. If you feel unworthy, you are asking for rejection without realizing it. If you feel abundant, you are asking for opportunities without forcing them. So what you feel consistently is what you are truly asking life to deliver. Think about the times you truly believed something would work out. There was no stress, no overthinking, just a quiet knowing inside you, and somehow things aligned. People showed up, doors opened unexpectedly. That wasn't coincidence. It was alignment between your inner state and your desire. That's what happens when your asking becomes clear, focused, and unwavering. Now imagine applying that same certainty to everything you want. Not just small things, but the big life-changing visions you've been afraid to claim. The moment you stop apologizing for your desires, they begin to feel natural to you. And when something feels natural, it no longer feels impossible. It becomes a matter of time, not a matter of if. You don't need to know how it will happen, and that's where most people get stuck. They try to control the path instead of trusting the process. But your role is not to figure out every step. It is to remain faithful to the end result. The how belongs to forces far beyond your current understanding. Your job is to stay aligned with the feeling that it is already done. There will be moments when reality tries to contradict your belief. Situations may appear that make you question everything you've chosen to assume. But this is where your power is tested, not in comfort, but in uncertainty. Will you return to old patterns, or will you stand firm in your new identity? Because persistence in belief is what transforms imagination into reality. You are not separate from what you desire. You are the source of it. That urge, that vision, that deep longing didn't come to you by accident. It came because there is a version of you that already exists in that reality. And every time you align your thoughts with it, you move closer to embodying it. You're not reaching for something outside. You're stepping into something within. Start asking as if there is no doubt left in your mind. Let your thoughts become bold, your imagination vivid, your emotions certain. Speak to yourself in a way that reflects ownership, not desperation. I am becoming turns into I already am when belief solidifies, and that shift alone can change the entire direction of your life. You don't need permission from anyone to claim what you want. No external validation can replace the power of your inner conviction. The moment you decide that your desire is valid, everything begins to rearrange. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. And when you change, your reality has no choice but to follow. So ask, not timidly, not occasionally, but consistently and boldly. Ask through your thoughts, your feelings, your expectations every single day. Let your inner world become so convincing that doubt no longer has space to exist. Because what you ask with certainty must find its way to you. And when it does, you'll realize it was never about receiving, it was about becoming. There is a powerful difference between asking with certainty and asking with doubt, and that difference quietly shapes everything that follows in your life. When you ask with doubt, even if your words sound confident, there is a hidden hesitation underneath, a subtle expectation that it might not happen for you. That hesitation creates resistance, and instead of moving toward your desire, you unknowingly push it further away. But when you ask with certainty, something inside you settles. You are no longer trying to convince the world, you are expressing a decision. It feels calm, grounded, and natural, as if what you are asking for already belongs to you. And that inner state begins to influence the way you think, the way you speak, and the way you respond to life. Think about how you behave when you are sure of something. You don't constantly question it. You don't look for proof every second. And you don't panic when things take time. There is a quiet confidence that allows you to remain steady, even when you don't yet see results. That same confidence must exist when you ask for what you desire. Because the truth is, your belief is not just a passive thought, it is an active force shaping your perception and your actions. When you believe something is possible for you, your mind starts filtering opportunities differently. You notice things you would have ignored before. You take steps you might have avoided, and you respond to challenges with resilience instead of fear. On the other hand, when doubt dominates your asking, it creates mixed signals within you. One part of you wants the outcome, but another part is preparing for disappointment. This inner conflict weakens your focus and drains your energy. You might find yourself overthinking, comparing, or seeking constant reassurance from others. And in doing so, you shift your attention away from creation and into worry. The more you entertain doubt, the more natural it feels until it becomes your default state. That is why asking with certainty is not just about a single moment. It is about training your mind to return to belief again and again, no matter what circumstances show you. Certainty does not mean you will never feel fear or uncertainty. It means you choose not to give those feelings control over your direction. You acknowledge them, but you don't build your identity around them. Instead, you return to the version of yourself who already has what you desire. You think from that place, not toward it. You make decisions as if the outcome is already secured, not as if you are still waiting for permission. This shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything. Because when you act from certainty, your energy becomes aligned, your focus sharpens, and your actions gain purpose. Another important part of asking with certainty is understanding that you are not trying to force anything into existence. You are not pushing against life, you are aligning with it. There is a sense of trust that replaces urgency. You stop checking for immediate results and start living as if the result is inevitable. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because instead of reacting to every external situation, you remain rooted in your inner decision. And from that place, your actions become more effective, more intentional, and more consistent. You may wonder how to build that level of certainty, especially if doubt has been a habit for a long time. It begins with awareness. Notice how you speak to yourself when you think about your desires. Do your thoughts sound like possibility or hesitation? Are you imagining success or are you preparing for failure? Once you become aware, you can begin to shift. Replace thoughts of, what if it doesn't happen, with, it is already unfolding. Replace, I hope this works, with, I trust that this is mine. At first it may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, but repetition turns new thoughts into new beliefs. It also helps to remember past moments when things worked out for you, even when you didn't know how. Those experiences are proof that outcomes are not always determined by your current circumstances. They remind you that there is a larger flow at work, one that responds to your inner state more than your outer conditions. When you connect with that understanding, it becomes easier to let go of doubt and lean into certainty. You begin to realize that your role is not to predict every detail, but to hold a clear and unwavering vision of what you want. As you continue practicing this, you will notice a shift not only in your mindset, but also in your behavior. You will stop seeking validation from others because you will already feel secure in your decision. You will become more patient because you trust the process. And most importantly, you will start experiencing small confirmations that reinforce your belief. These moments may seem insignificant at first, but they are signs that your inner shift is taking effect. Each one strengthens your certainty and makes it easier to stay aligned. Eventually, asking with certainty becomes your natural way of being. It no longer feels like something you have to force. It feels like who you are. You approach life with a sense of expectation, not desperation. You understand that what you desire is not separate from you, and that your belief is the bridge that connects you to it. And in that state, receiving is no longer a question of if, but simply a matter of when. There is a deeper language within you that speaks louder than words, and that language is your feelings. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you are sending out a constant signal through the emotions you dwell in the most. You may say you want success, happiness, or abundance, but if your dominant feeling is fear, lack, or unworthiness, then that is the message you are truly broadcasting. Life doesn't respond only to what you say you want. It responds to what you consistently feel to be true. And this is where many people unknowingly block their own progress, because they focus on changing their words while leaving their emotional patterns untouched. Think about how powerful a single emotion can be. When you feel confident, your posture changes, your voice becomes steady, and your decisions become bold. You don't second guess every move, you trust yourself. Now imagine carrying that same emotional certainty into your desires. Instead of hoping something works out, you feel as if it already has. That feeling creates alignment between your inner world and your outer goals. It removes the sense of distance and replaces it with a sense of ownership. And when something feels like it belongs to you, you naturally move toward it without resistance. On the other hand, if you constantly feel anxious or doubtful, even while thinking about your goals, you create an internal contradiction. One part of you is asking for growth, while another part is expecting failure. This mixed signal weakens your focus and drains your energy. It's like trying to move forward while holding yourself back at the same time. And over time, those repeated feelings of doubt become familiar, even comfortable, making it harder to shift into a more empowering state. That's why it's not enough to simply think positively. You must feel differently on a consistent level. Your emotions are not random. They are shaped by the thoughts you entertain and the beliefs you hold. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not good enough, your feelings will reflect that belief. But the moment you begin to challenge those thoughts and replace them with stronger, more empowering ones, your emotional state starts to change. It may not happen instantly, but with repetition, your feelings begin to follow your new mental patterns. And as those feelings shift, so does your overall experience of life. You begin to respond differently to situations, and that response creates new outcomes. It's important to understand that cultivating positive emotions doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing where you place your focus. Even in difficult situations, you have the ability to direct your attention toward possibilities instead of limitations. This shift in focus changes how you feel, and those feelings influence your actions. For example, when you focus on opportunity instead of obstacles, you feel motivated rather than discouraged. And that motivation leads to action, which brings you closer to your desired result. Another key aspect of this process is consistency. It's not about feeling good for a few moments and then returning to old patterns. It's about training yourself to return to empowering emotions again and again, even when it's challenging. This repetition strengthens new emotional habits and makes them more natural over time. At first, it may feel like effort, but eventually it becomes your default state. You begin to notice that you no longer react the same way to setbacks, and you recover more quickly from negative experiences. That emotional resilience is a sign of growth. You can start by becoming more aware of your emotional patterns throughout the day. Pay attention to how you feel in different situations and notice what triggers certain emotions. Are you frequently feeling stressed, doubtful, or overwhelmed? Or are you experiencing moments of confidence, gratitude, and excitement? This awareness gives you the power to make conscious changes. When you notice a negative emotion, instead of suppressing it, acknowledge it and then gently redirect your focus. Choose a thought that supports the feeling you want to experience instead. It also helps to intentionally create moments that generate positive emotions. This could be through visualization, where you imagine yourself already living your desired outcome, or through gratitude, where you focus on what is already going well in your life. These practices are not just temporary mood boosters, they are tools for reshaping your emotional baseline. The more you engage with them, the more natural those positive feelings become. And as they become more consistent, they start to influence your overall state of being. As your emotional state begins to align with your desires, you'll notice subtle but powerful changes. You'll feel more confident in your decisions, more open to opportunities, and less affected by temporary setbacks. You'll stop seeking constant validation from others because you'll already feel secure within yourself. And most importantly, you'll begin to experience a sense of flow, where things start to come together in ways that feel almost effortless. This is not because everything around you has changed, but because you have changed internally. In the end, your feelings are not just reactions, they are instructions. They guide your perception, shape your behavior, and influence the results you experience. When you take control of your emotional state, you take control of the direction your life is moving in. So instead of asking only with your words, begin asking with your feelings. Let your emotions reflect the reality you want to create. Because when your inner state matches your desire, the process of receiving becomes not just possible, but inevitable. One of the biggest traps people fall into when they desire something deeply is trying to control every step of how it will happen. The mind immediately begins to calculate, to predict, to map out every possible path, believing that certainty comes from knowing the process. But in doing so, it creates tension, because the more you try to figure out every detail, the more you become aware of everything you cannot currently see. That awareness turns into doubt, and suddenly your focus shifts from the end result to the obstacles in between. Instead of moving forward with confidence, you begin to hesitate, waiting for perfect clarity that may never come. When you focus too much on the how, you unknowingly limit the possibilities available to you. Your mind can only work with what it already knows, based on past experiences and current circumstances. But what you desire may not arrive through familiar routes. It may come through unexpected people, sudden opportunities, or ideas you haven't yet considered. By trying to control the path, you close yourself off from these possibilities. You reduce something limitless into something predictable, and in doing so, you slow down the very process you are trying to accelerate. Letting go of the how does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means shifting your role from controller to creator. Your responsibility is to define what you want clearly and to hold that vision with confidence. Once that is done, your focus should move toward maintaining the belief that it is already in motion. This creates a sense of ease within you, because you are no longer carrying the burden of figuring everything out. Instead, you trust that the right steps will reveal themselves at the right time. And when they do, you will recognize them because you are aligned with your goal. Think about times in your life when something worked out in a way you didn't expect. Perhaps an opportunity came through a conversation you didn't plan, or a solution appeared just when you needed it. In those moments, you were not controlling every detail. You were open to receiving. That openness is what allows life to arrange things in your favor. But when you are constantly trying to predict and control, you create resistance. You become so focused on one specific path that you miss better ones that are right in front of you. There is also a hidden fear behind the need to control the how. It often comes from a lack of trust. Trust in yourself, in the process, and in the possibility that things can work out beyond your current understanding. When you don't trust, you try to compensate by overthinking and overplanning. But this only increases anxiety because no amount of planning can guarantee a specific outcome. True confidence comes from knowing that even if you don't have all the answers right now, you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. When you release the need to control the process, you create space for intuition to guide you. Instead of forcing decisions, you begin to feel your way forward. You notice subtle nudges, ideas, inspirations, or opportunities that feel right. These are often the steps that lead you closer to your goal, but they can only be recognized when your mind is not cluttered with overanalysis. Intuition works best in a state of calm focus, not in a state of stress and urgency. Another important shift happens when you stop focusing on the how. You become more present. Instead of constantly thinking about the future and worrying about how everything will unfold, you start engaging more fully with what is in front of you. This presence improves the quality of your actions. You give your best to each step, rather than rushing through it in search of the next one. And ironically, this is what often accelerates your progress. When your actions are aligned and intentional, they create better results than actions driven by fear or impatience. It's also important to understand that clarity often comes after you take action, not before. Waiting until you have every detail figured out can keep you stuck indefinitely. But when you take a step forward with belief, even if it's a small one, new information becomes available. You learn, you adjust, and the path becomes clearer as you move. This is how progress naturally unfolds, not through perfect planning, but through consistent movement guided by trust. As you practice letting go of the how, you will begin to notice a sense of relief. The pressure to control everything starts to fade, and in its place comes a quiet confidence. You still have goals, you still take action, but you are no longer attached to a single rigid plan. You are flexible, open, and ready to adapt. This flexibility allows you to move with life instead of against it, making the journey smoother and more enjoyable. Over time, this approach strengthens your belief in the process itself. You begin to see that things often work out in ways that are better than what you originally imagined. This reinforces your trust and makes it easier to let go of control in the future. You realize that your job is not to force outcomes, but to align with them. And that alignment comes from clarity of desire, consistency of belief, and openness to whatever path unfolds. In the end, the how is not your responsibility to figure out all at once. It is something that reveals itself step by step as you move forward with faith in your vision. When you release the need to control every detail, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and allow greater possibilities to enter your life. You become more focused, more present, and more receptive to opportunities. And in that state, achieving your goals becomes not just possible, but far more natural than you ever expected. There is a profound shift that happens the moment you stop seeing your desire as something far away and start seeing yourself as the person who already has it. Most people live in a constant state of trying to get, always chasing, always waiting, always feeling like something is missing. But the truth is, the version of you who has already achieved that goal exists as a possibility right now. The only difference between where you are and where you want to be is the identity you are currently holding on to. When you begin to embody the version of yourself who already has it, you close that gap from the inside out. At first, embodying this new version of yourself may feel unfamiliar or even uncomfortable. That's because you are stepping out of old patterns and into something new. Your mind may try to pull you back into familiar thoughts and behaviors simply because they feel safe. But growth requires you to move beyond that comfort zone. It requires you to act in ways that are consistent with who you are becoming, not who you have been. And the more you practice this, the more natural it begins to feel. It's important to understand that embodiment is not about pretending or faking something you are not. It is about recognizing a potential within you and choosing to express it now. You are not creating a false identity. You are uncovering a deeper truth about yourself. That version of you already exists as a possibility, and every time you think, act, or feel in alignment with it, you bring it closer into reality. This process is gradual, but it is incredibly powerful. Another key aspect of embodiment is consistency. It's not enough to feel confident for a few moments and then return to old habits. You must consciously return to this new identity again and again, especially in moments when it feels challenging. For example, when faced with a setback, instead of reacting with frustration or doubt, ask yourself how the version of you who already has the result would respond. Would they give up, or would they see it as a temporary obstacle? By choosing the latter, you reinforce your new identity and weaken the old one. As you continue this practice, you will start to notice changes in how others respond to you. People will begin to treat you differently because you are presenting yourself differently. Opportunities may start to appear that align with your new mindset. This is not because you are forcing anything to happen, but because you are creating alignment between your inner and outer world. When who you are matches what you want, the process of receiving becomes much more natural. It's also worth noting that embodying this version of yourself does not mean you will never face challenges. Life will still present obstacles, but your response to those obstacles will be different. Instead of seeing them as signs that you are off track, you will see them as part of the journey. This perspective allows you to remain steady and focused, even when things don't go exactly as planned. And that stability is what keeps you moving forward. Over time, this new way of being becomes your default. You no longer have to remind yourself to think or act differently. It simply becomes who you are. The confidence, the clarity, the sense of purpose all become natural parts of your identity. And as this happens, your external reality begins to reflect that inner transformation more and more clearly. What once felt distant starts to feel normal, even expected. In the end, embodying the version of yourself who already has it is about stepping into your power. It is about realizing that you are not waiting for life to change before you can change. You are the one initiating that change from within. When you align your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions with your desired outcome, you create a powerful momentum that carries you forward. And in that state, success is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you naturally attract by simply being who you have chosen to become. There comes a moment in every journey where reality seems to test everything you have chosen to believe. You may have felt confident, aligned, and certain about your desire, and then suddenly circumstances appear that completely contradict it. Delays happen, things fall apart, people doubt you, and nothing seems to reflect the vision you've been holding on to. This is the exact point where most people give up, not because their desire is impossible, but because they mistake temporary appearances for permanent truth. They allow what they see in the moment to override what they decided within themselves, and in doing so, they return to old patterns that keep them stuck. But persistence is what separates those who eventually receive from those who keep starting over. It is easy to believe when everything is going well, when signs are positive and progress is visible. The real strength of your belief is revealed when nothing on the outside is confirming it yet. Can you still hold on to your vision when there is no immediate evidence? Can you remain steady when everything around you is asking you to doubt? Because that is where transformation truly happens, not in comfort, but in uncertainty. When you choose to persist in your belief despite contradictions, you are strengthening a new identity within yourself. Understand that external reality often lags behind internal change. Just because you have shifted your mindset does not mean the world will instantly rearrange overnight. There is a period where your old conditions may still appear, simply because they are the result of past thoughts and beliefs. If you react to those conditions with frustration or doubt, you reinforce them and keep them active. But if you remain grounded in your new belief, you begin to weaken the influence of the old patterns. Over time, the external world has no choice but to catch up with your internal state. It's important to recognize that setbacks are not signs of failure, they are part of the process. Every meaningful goal comes with challenges, and those challenges are not there to stop you, they are there to shape you. They force you to grow, to become more resilient, more focused, and more determined. When you face a setback, you have two choices. You can interpret it as proof that things aren't working, or you can see it as a temporary obstacle that you are capable of overcoming. The meaning you assign to it will determine your next step. Persistence also requires emotional discipline. There will be moments when frustration, fear, or disappointment try to take over. In those moments, it's easy to fall back into old thinking patterns, to question everything you've been working toward. But this is where you must become aware of your reactions. Instead of allowing those emotions to control you, acknowledge them and then consciously choose a different response. Remind yourself of your vision, reconnect with the feeling of already having it, and bring your focus back to what you want to create, not what you want to avoid. Another challenge that arises during this phase is the influence of other people. Not everyone will understand your vision, and some may even try to discourage you. They may project their own doubts onto you or question your choices. If you're not careful, their opinions can weaken your belief and cause you to lose focus. This is why it is important to protect your mindset. You don't need everyone's approval, you need your own conviction. Stay connected to your purpose and remember why you started. The more you rely on your inner belief, the less external opinions will affect you. Persistence is not about forcing things to happen or pushing yourself to exhaustion. It is about maintaining alignment with your goal over time. It is a steady, consistent commitment to your vision, even when progress feels slow. Sometimes this means taking small steps rather than big leaps. Sometimes it means resting and regaining your energy. What matters is that you don't completely walk away from what you have chosen. Even a small step forward is still progress, and those small steps add up over time. As you continue to persist, you will begin to notice subtle changes. Your mindset becomes stronger, your reactions become calmer, and your confidence becomes more stable. You no longer feel shaken by every obstacle because you understand that they are temporary. This inner stability is a sign that you are growing into the version of yourself who can handle the success you desire. And as you become that person, your external reality begins to reflect it more clearly. There is also a sense of clarity that comes with persistence. When you stay committed to your vision, distractions become less appealing. You become more focused on what truly matters and less concerned with what doesn't align with your goals. This clarity helps you make better decisions and use your time and energy more effectively. Instead of jumping from one idea to another, you remain centered on your path, trusting that consistency will lead you where you want to go. Over time, the very things that once felt like obstacles may turn out to be stepping stones. You may look back and realize that certain challenges taught you valuable lessons or redirected you toward better opportunities. This perspective shift reinforces your belief in the process and makes it easier to keep going, even when things feel uncertain. You begin to see that everything is working together, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. In the end, persistence is not just about achieving a goal, it is about becoming someone who refuses to give up on themselves. It is about building a level of inner strength that is not easily shaken by temporary conditions. When you develop this kind of resilience, you stop depending on external validation to stay motivated. Your drive comes from within, and that makes it far more powerful and sustainable. You realize that as long as you continue to believe and move forward, the outcome is only a matter of time. So when reality seems to disagree with your vision, don't take it as a final answer. See it as a phase, a moment that will pass if you remain steady in your belief. Hold on to your vision, even when it feels challenging. Trust that what you have chosen is still possible, even if you can't yet see the full picture. Because the moment you refuse to give up, you step into a level of power that cannot be easily shaken. And from that place, success becomes not just a possibility, but an inevitability shaped by your persistence.